Alright, so this is kind of just like a new thing I just thought of. I don't really expect it to go anywhere, but I thought I'd try to make like a first episode and see how this goes. I don't even know what I'm going to call it, but this is going to be kind of like a podcast of me talking. So this episode, like this topic, it's going to be about like kids having shitty parents. Like, I didn't know when I was a kid, when I grew up, that people could really have bad parents. To give you a little context, I am, I guess, I was born in North Carolina. I grew up in kind of a middle-class suburb outside of the city, and I had really nice neighbors, and my parents were good. They were fair. They had their flaws, which I learned later, but everyone's got flaws. But I learned that they were actually really good parents through some of these experiences that I'm going to share. So, my neighbor, and probably one of my longest best friends, she grew up with her grandmother. Her grandmother lives next to me. And I've noticed how I never really saw her mom or her dad. So she was about 7 at the time, and I was a year older than her, so I guess 8. I asked her, I said, how come I don't see your mom or your dad? Where are they, Just kind of thinking innocently, just wondering. Maybe they're out of town or something. I just haven't seen them. And she told me that her mom works in a different state very far away, and her dad is in prison. And this kind of really shocked me because I didn't understand, I was like, so you don't have any parents with you, you just have your grandparents? I was confused. I didn't get it. I couldn't comprehend that someone couldn't have good parents or parents at all. And keep in mind that was all coming from a 7-year-old who just said it like so nonchalantly, just calmly, like, yeah, that's what happened. And it kind of made me realize how kind of good I have it, or good some people have it. It's something you don't really think about, or at least I didn't. And I had, through this experience, I kind of learned that people can really have parents that aren't around, or parents that aren't good, and that doesn't seem like much, it doesn't seem like obvious, it should be obvious, but it wasn't to me at the time, because I kind of grew up in my own little bubble. I grew up in my own sheltered kind of area, and I didn't really think about other people that way. I just assumed how everyone would kind of have it like I did, like nice parents, nice neighbors, somewhat good neighborhood. I just assumed everyone had it like that because that's the way I had it, and that's the way I assumed it would be for everyone. And it was kind of interesting because another time later in life, through when I started going to high school, I had another friend who also happened to be another girl at this time. She told me how she wishes that she had parents like mine. And I met her parents several times. I'm good friends with their family, and my parents are good friends with their parents. And I asked her, like, your parents seem nice. They seem awesome. What do you mean? And she says, do your parents fight? I said, I mean, they argue occasionally over stupid stuff, kind of like what they're watching at night, but they don't really have fights. She says, my parents have fights a lot, and I've been trying to get them to go to like marriage counseling and try to get them to help, but they don't want to do that. They just keep fighting, and I don't know what to do. And at that time too, I was like still kind of surprised to me. Like I said, I still didn't understand. So I was like, they don't listen to you when you tell them? And they're like, no, they just yell at me. And that, that's hard. I don't I didn't really know what to say. I was at a loss of words. I kind of said, 'cause she has a little sister. I said, "What does your sister think of all this?" And she said her sister just kind of shuts everyone out and doesn't really let anyone into her world. And because of all this, and when her parents argue, she locks herself in her room and tries to drown it out through like video games or music or whatever. And I said, "Has your sister not tried to talk to your parents at all?" And she said that she didn't want to, and that she was scared to even say anything because of the way that when I asked them about it to get help and get counseling, they refused and got mad at me. So I thought to myself, well, maybe if you can get your sister to say it, then maybe then they'll realize that if it's coming from the little sister and the big sister, that they'll understand that they need to do something, and that it really shows that they're bothering both of them, and that they do need to get help. And either the little sister didn't want to or didn't care, and that never happens. And so she still lives with her parents before we go off to college and stuff. She's still living with her parents that argue on a daily basis, and she has she's kind of up there. She's wealthy, I guess. Around my neighborhood, she lives in a different neighborhood, and there's kind of a wealthy area around in this suburb, and she's part of it. And it showed me that like money doesn't really help out with these issues, even if someone's got everything they want, even if a child's spoiled rotten and they got everything they want, the new Xbox, new TVs in their room, fridges, anything, that they still can have issues. And I always thought to myself, not that I am rich or have everything I wanted. I thought to myself, if I had that much money, because I see all these kids with all that money, it's like I'd be pretty happy. But it turns out most of them are pretty miserable and neglected by their parents, and that shocked me. I keep saying it, but it really does. You look at someone and you think, oh, they have that really nice car, they have their really nice house, they have all these really nice things, and you think about that and you think that they're happy with all those things. But even if they have all those things, they're still most of the time upset and not very happy at all because of what's happening in their family. This one kid at my school, he has just his dad is so focused on work, and his mom's the same thing. They're both business people, and they're off constantly, leaving him to his house like by himself. And his mom just gave him a credit card and just kind of like, get whatever you want, take care of yourself, we're not going to be here, so you have to look out for yourself. And that's a lot to put on a teenager. And so he kind of just bought constant fast food because he didn't know how to cook, he didn't know how to take care of himself. And then he constantly, he gained a lot of weight because of it. And he go out and buy whatever he wants, and so now he's overweight and alone because his parents aren't around, and he gets bullied because of his weight. And people don't really realize why he gained that weight in the first place, and why he purchased those things that he did, why he buys all these new clothes, these new watch, new shoes. It's because he's trying, I guess, to show off, even though he doesn't have anyone. And it's, when you think about stuff like that, I never would have thought about this before. If I look back to my 8-year-old self, where I didn't realize that kids couldn't have good parents, people couldn't have family, and I think of all that back then, and how I assumed everyone had it like I did when they didn't. And I also learned that money, like, it's always been said, it's like a saying, money doesn't buy happiness, and that's very true. It can buy you temporary happiness with the new stuff you buy, but it'll never really truly replace the void in your life of not having good family or good values or someone there to just help you and teach you. You kind of read in these movies and books, you watch movies and see these kids, they grew up, these really rich kids, and these like stories, and how they kind of relate to their nana, like their nanny or their maids that they have in their houses, and kind of see to them as the parents more than the actual parents. And I thought that was just kind of like a movie cliche where it's like, oh, that's just an easy way to kind of manipulate and say, oh yeah, this kid, it's an easy way to write, you know. And but it turns out it was just actually just based on reality. And I learned growing up that kids can have crappy parents. I learned that people can have no one around growing up, and that's why they act the way they do. So whenever people try to give others hard times, I don't think right away, well, they're just jerks. I think maybe they didn't have someone when they were growing up that caused them to act like this. And I guess maybe the whole lesson behind this is just don't judge a book by its cover, because you never really know what's going on in someone's life. So that's what I learned growing up.